Hello, my name is Carrie Walker with NACE. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, HBCU students share their internship selection process. It is my pleasure to introduce Tamara Taylor, Interim Director of Career Education and Senior Assistant Director for Career Coaching and Student Belonging. Take it away, Tamara.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon and welcome to the HBCU Students Share Their Internship Selection Process panel hosted by NACE's HBCU Affinity Group. My name is Tamara Taylor and I serve as a co-lead for the Affinity Group. In celebration of Black History Month, the HBCU Affinity Group wanted to celebrate HBCU excellence by giving our students the main stage and sharing their internship experiences. It is our hope that you, our audience, will gain better insight into what students are faced with during the internship process and think about strategies to make the internship process both easier and more relevant. It is my honor to introduce today's moderators and my fellow co-leads, Katrina Dos Reese with McKinney and Harold Bell with Spelman College.
Thank you, Tamara, for the introduction. Yes, I am Katrina Dos Reese. I serve as the Director of Recruiting for McKinney, and prior to coming to McKinney, I also served as a College Career Center Director for 15 plus years. It is a pleasure to be with you all today, and I'll pass the mic to my co-lead and moderator.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harold Bell. I am the Director of Career Planning and Development at Spelman College. This is my 22nd year in that role. Excited to be here, excited to moderate, excited to be with the students and to be with you. Welcome.
Awesome. So I guess we're going to get right to it, huh? So do we want our panelists to introduce themselves very quickly? I'll pass it to Anaya.
Hello, everyone. My name is Anaya Whaley. I'm from Claflin University. I'm a junior double majoring in mass communications and psychology, and I'm so excited to share my internship experience on this panel today.
Jalen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jalen Drury, a senior political science scholar here at Norfolk State University from Portsmouth, Virginia, and I'm excited to share my internship experience with you all today. Thank you.
And Nina.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nina Collymore. I'm a junior here at the Norfolk State University, originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I'm a junior with a double concentration in business entrepreneurship and business intelligence data analytics, and equally excited to share my internship experiences with you today.
Awesome. Thank you all so very much. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So when you decided to find an internship, I'm sure there were hundreds, if not thousands of options out there. So we want to know, how did you narrow your options? And please feel free to just walk us through your internship process. And I will direct this question to Anaya.
Thank you for that question. When I started the internship process, I was in my sophomore year, and I knew that I wanted to work in media entertainment. And I'd heard from many people that you need to go to LA or New York or some big city to really get out there and to make yourself known and make those connections. And I said, well, I need funding, I need housing, I need an opportunity, I need a chance. And I also knew that being at an HBCU, I knew that in those areas, HBCUs were not prevalent in LA and New York. So I was like, how am I going to get out there? I heard of a program called HBCU in LA from one of the students in my department. And I did some research, did some digging, and it was legit. And I saw some videos and students highlighting their experiences. And I said, okay, great. I wrote down other programs as well. And I started my internship search and I started applying. I started with just making a table, a chart And I put down every deadline that was due. So I think I applied to HBCU like 2 weeks in advance. I already had my recommendation letters. I already had my work samples. I had all of that stuff. I started building my portfolio. Kept applying, kept applying. I was applying to just everything. I told my parents, I was like, I would love to go to LA. And they were like, okay, girl, how are you going to get there? HBCU did provide housing, which was a bonus for me. And all the other internships that I looked through, they did not provide housing, but they provide competitive pay, bonuses, and sometimes a relocation stipend. I work with NBC Universal Studio Group, and I was provided competitive pay, no housing and no relocation stipend, but my work was remote, so it all worked out. I had housing, a place to stay, and I did my work remotely, and I had some good money coming in. So that's really how the search started. And it took some time. It took about 4 to 5 months to solidify these internships and opportunities through interviews and talking with recruiters and trying to find my right spot. But through it all, it worked out. There were other opportunities that I thought I was going to get into, but HBCU in LA was the great fit for me to really start in the media entertainment industry.
Wow, that was very thorough what you were able to accomplish, Anaya. Jalen, I know you have an interesting story about your internship process. Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. I think when I first started looking for internship opportunities, I had to sit down and figure out what exactly was I looking for. What did I want to get out of my internship opportunity that I was seeking out? So I sat down and said, okay, I want to be involved in government and policy affairs, but also business affairs as well. But how can I put those two together? And so that really is what led my search. But to Anaya's point, it was also what were the benefits that I was going to receive when doing those internships? What are the buy-in for me as the student, as the intern, and why I should want to work at those companies? So that also led me through my search of finding internship opportunities. The housing piece was very important. I know in this era of post-COVID, a lot of things aren't as remote as they were 2 years ago. And so that has been part of my consideration as well. But it's the buy-in, it's the salary, it's the housing stipends, the relocation stipends. All of those went into my thought process when trying to find internship opportunities, because at the end, it's really about the investment that the employer is willing to have into the intern.
Awesome. I'd like to riff off that last thought that you shared, Jalen, and just kind of put a sticking point on relocation expenses. So if your internship wasn't a drivable distance, how important is it for an employer to cover the relocation, such as airfare, housing, assistance, and just that whole process? Was that a deciding factor for you and Anaya?
I think, and I can speak for myself, it is definitely the deciding factor. It will make or break whether you choose to accept that internship offer or deny it. If I can't move out of state to go be part of this internship program, then how am I going to participate, right? If I don't have the funds to be able to relocate on my own, and if the employer isn't willing to provide any type of bonus or relocation stipend or just resources on how we are able to move away, even if it's not the employer specifically providing housing or a stipend, but outsourcing it for other companies or other organizations to help out, that would make or break whether or not I would choose the internship program.
Yes, and also when I was applying, I was looking at the details of the roles. Some jobs are saying we only want students in LA and surrounding areas, or this is open to all students. If they said like LA and surrounding areas or that city base, I knew they were not providing as much funding or housing and things of that sort. Or maybe they wanted someone a little closer to that business or corporation because they're a little bit more accessible to the area. And because I was coming out of state, I knew I wanted a company that was able to work with me. I had a great recruiter who worked with me, talked with me about things. And my program also provided a lot of support, emotional support with just going through that process. So yes, housing, relocation, all that was like a big step in my decision-making process. And I think it really should be when you're considering going somewhere for the summer for 2 to 3 consecutive months.
Thank you.
All righty, let's move on to question 2. So this is a 2-part question, and the first one is a reflection question for the students. So the first question is, when I think of resources on my campus, this is what I think about. And so we want to know, want our viewing audience to know, what is it that you're referring to when we reflect on resources? And then the second part then is, how do you utilize resources on campus in your internship search? So we're going to start with Nina, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So this question really excites me because of how many opportunities and different resources that Norfolk State especially offers. So to answer your first question, what do I think of when I hear resources? I think of our career services office. I also think about each individual department. So I'm a part of the School of Business, and they alone try to equip students with internship opportunities. We have programs such as the Center for Financial Advancement, which is also like a gateway to another internship opportunity. And then utilizing those resources, I can say for my own internship experience, the Center for Financial Advancement, or Home for USA, they transported students to Atlanta for a Money for Life conference, and they encouraged us to network. And little did I know, even though it was like a dinner, a ball, that was my interview, getting to meet, unbeknownst to me at the time, department heads of different companies, and then getting that internship to work with them remotely. So internships can begin from just joining simple programs at your school. Thurgood Marshall has a strong presence on HBCU campuses. That's another great resource for us as HBCU students to get on internships and opportunities.
All right, thank you, thank you. Jalen.
Absolutely. I second my fellow Spartan, Nina, on resources here at Norfolk State. Career services is home base, right? When we're looking for resources, when we have our career fairs, when we have our graduate school fairs, actually that just happened a week ago here on our campus, and I was front and center when trying to figure out grad school. But there's plenty of resources on our campus. And I know a lot of our HBCUs and our institutions offer resources, but it's all about whether or not the student wants to seek it out, right? Are you going to go seek out those resources and those opportunities? Our departments, like Nina said, have opportunities. Those are usually the folks who get the opportunities before career services, right? Before they send them over to career services, their folks are emailing them with the internship and the fellowship opportunities. 2 days ago, the chair of the political science department emailed me a fellowship opportunity at the HUD department, right? And so it's really about seeking out those opportunities because they're there. You just have to go seek them out.
Excellent, excellent. And Anaya.
Yeah, so there are prevalent opportunities here at Claflin University. I know everyone talked about career services, which is the office that I work in, but there's also academic resources that we have. So we have like the TRIO program, we have like academic advising now. We also have financial resources. We have so many different scholarships that are out there for students. I mean, really try to provide you like a good understanding of like how to navigate college. And I also serve as an ambassador. So I always tell students to come into the office and like make yourself known, because you have to want it just as bad. I know sometimes you can be a little aggy of being that student, but I promise you it pays off, because like Jalen said, someone will email you instantly about an opportunity, a scholarship, and you'll be like, do I qualify? So it's always a great pleasure to be in those spaces and to really understand and share the experience with other students as well.
Great, great. Thank you all. Thank you all. Okay. Well, moving on to number 3. When you began your internship search, what was attractive to you and what made you apply? We've kind of touched a little bit about that on the first question, but we'll continue to build on that. So Nina, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so things that attracted me to my internships is the passion and the purpose behind it. So I am a user of both of my internships. I work for Home for USA. And then I also worked for a nonprofit called Envision Lead Grow. And both of these businesses, before I actually worked for them, they served me, or I was their target audience. So we had that value factor. Another thing is incentives and the flexibility. I love to work remotely, but it's still team oriented. And they provided me with a lot of resources, such as a laptop to work from, a phone if need be. And that can be that can go so far in and of itself. And then they also provide me with training certificates if I wanted to. So those different types of incentives really attracted me to my internships. I'm not only working for them, but they're working for me too. So I love that back and forth. And then also just the flexibility and the financial flexibility and allowing me to grow and to challenge, because internships are kind of the step before actually getting that job. So some things you're experiencing for the first time and students don't know, is it taboo to talk about this? Can I argue or stand up for myself as it pertains to how much money I'm making or how much I feel like I deserve to be making? Should I even bring up housing and things of that nature? So internships that offer understanding and growth, I feel really attract students, and they really attract me.
All right. Very good. Very good. Jalen.
Absolutely. I think we touched on this in the first question, and I want to second what I started is it's really the buy-in, right, of the employer, and I want to emphasize that point. I think what's important to me as a student, as a professional, as a rising professional in my career area, is opportunities, right? What other opportunities are available for me within that internship? Am I just going to be stuck in my cubicle in my specific area, or do I get to have the opportunity to ask questions and see, do I fit in this department, or do I fit in better in this department? And those are the things that matter. Am I able to come to the team meetings and the professional development sessions that the company or the organization is having? Those things are very important, because that's the professional development piece that interns are seeking, that interns need to grow and develop before they leave the program. And so when I'm reading those descriptions, and if I'm granted an interview, at the end of my interview, I'm going to ask those questions. I'm going to ask, what opportunities are available for me, right? Like, what do you expect for me to gain by the end of this internship, so I can go and possibly come back to the company at some point because of how much you've invested into me as an intern.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to pivot back to Katrina now.
Yes, so really juicy question. So NACE has conducted research on paid and unpaid internships, and it was recently quoted by Rolling Out. So what I want to dig into is your decision-making process, and whether it mattered if the internship was paid or unpaid. And I want to kind of put a sticking point on this, and if you all can answer, first start answering the question with this question. If you encountered an unpaid internship that was of great interest to you, but you economically found it challenging to accept, what are your thoughts in terms of the financial responsibility of the employer, yourself, and your institution? And so I'd like to start with Anaya.
Thank you for that question. So working in media and entertainment, I've learned that a lot of the opportunities out there are unpaid. People will literally be honored to hold Rihanna's shoe. I would be honored to hold Rihanna's shoe at a show. I'm just letting you know that for free. I would be honored to. But there are a lot of opportunities where it's more so about networking, building relationships than money. I think that goes a lot farther than any type of bonus or check that you can get. So to answer that question, if I encountered something that was unpaid and I really, really wanted to do it and I felt like it was a great position, I think I would have to have a healthy discussion with the employer, the recruiter, asking them, okay, what does this look like? I may not be able to commit to so many hours, but can we adjust those hours? I'm also hoping that you could maybe help me with the gas stipend here and there if I have to go farther out. Also, are you going to provide maybe like a weekly lunch or something? Just some other things that accommodate to help along the way. But I think I'll be willing to do it, given, maybe the opportunities that it could lead after or doing that experience. And also just knowing that it can really help build my resume and really put me in rooms that I may have never imagined as a paid intern. You just never know. A lot of times in Hollywood, there were some experiences where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm at the BET Awards. Really? Like I never would have known that. So I think I would take that opportunity and I would see it as a great value and asset in the long run, and to really just remain humble and be passionate about what I'm doing, and seek purpose.
Jalen, did you have anything to add?
I think Anaya covered that ground great. I would just add as well on the flip side of that, because the networking piece is important. We also have to think about the times that we're in, right? Post-COVID and economic issues going on around the country and things like that. And students, again, having access to opportunities comes with the reality, right? Is access and opportunities doesn't get rid of the reality, whether a student is struggling to sustain themselves financially already on their campus, but when they go to seek out opportunities, how are they going to get there, right? How are they going to pay their bills if they have bills? How are they going to keep up with their day-to-day expenses if they're working an internship, throughout the week that's taking away time where they could be working a part-time job, right? And so to Anaya's point, is what are you willing to offer me to counter not paying me? And I think she covered that very well.
Yes, awesome. So Anaya and Jalen, and Anaya, I know you've been on both sides of the paid and unpaid coin. Did compensation have an impact on your internship experience?
So compensation did have an impact on my internship experience. I was going out of state, so about 7-8 hours from South Carolina, I was going to California. So that really did, because of course, LA is expensive. And I definitely wanted to make sure I got settled and everything. So compensation did have an impact. In full transparency, when I got my offer letter, I actually reached out to my recruiter and I asked for an increase. I was like, can we add a little more, honestly? And I think it's okay to have those healthy conversations and ask for a little bit more when you feel like you're a little bit, more qualified, or you might need a little bit more to sustain yourself. And he had a conversation and he basically told me like, no, this is what we're going to work with. But it all worked out because according to state laws, and I guess they had more funding, we also got a raise during our internship period because the city or location I was living in, it was a little bit more costly through the research. So it worked out. I got a little raise. That was really good. It worked itself out. But I did ask and he said no. And I was okay with that because I was still passionate. I still want to do the job. And I also know that you shouldn't really compare, because I was asking other interns, like, what are you getting? What are you getting? I know people do that. We don't have to act like we don't do that. What are you getting? They were like, girl, I'm getting this. I'm getting this. How you get this? And it was like, you know what? It's okay. I'm just going to do my work. And then whatever that leads to, I'll be okay with that. But compensation was a huge, one of the top factors I was considering when I was doing my internship, because I also knew I'm a full-time college student. When I come back in August to school, I need something to kind of live off before I can, do some more work or find another job. So like Jayla mentioned, like if you have expenses or you have a lot of things going on, you need to have something where you have a buffer, you can save, or you can pivot a little bit here and there, or, if you're in organizations, things of that sort, you can still have time to enjoy both your academic, your personal, and your professional life. So awesome. Conversation did matter.
Awesome. Jalen, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll second again what Anaya just said. Conversation is very important. I've had the opportunity to do an unpaid fellowship when I first got to Norfolk State, and the ones after that, my next fellowship was paid, and my last two internships, the one I'm currently doing and the one from last summer, have been paid as well. So I've been on both sides of it, and I know how it feels to not be paid. But at the time, I didn't really understand. I was a freshman. It was the start of the pandemic. And I didn't really understand, but I also knew that, hey, okay, this is an opportunity, and I should take it. Right. And that's all I knew at the time. And one thing that I was told early on is that you miss every shot you don't take. And so whether or not that I was getting paid or not getting paid, I was going to take that opportunity, and what's led to other opportunities. So now I'm on my fourth internship leaving out of Norfolk State University, which is going to open other doors for me. So.
Awesome. So with paid and unpaid, kind of hanging in the balance, what did you find most fulfilling about your internship experience?
Ooh, most fulfilling. Besides the fact that I was telling people I was living in LA, most fulfilling was definitely that although my internship was a lot different than what I expected was, it has led me to be in a position where I'm doing more of what I love. And I've actually found a summer internship that has greatly propelled me into that direction. So I'll explain. I worked in communications and marketing, which was really great. We worked on a lot of shows like Hacks and New Amsterdam, and Pitch Perfect. And those were a lot of like series that are very popular. People watch them, they're amazing. I had to do a lot of like media research. So I was like typing at my desk, doing a lot of like work for like a lot of hours, but I was passionate about it. I was learning what I wanted to do. I also was like, I wanted to do public relations, but I didn't really know how to get my feet wet in it. So I had some great conversations with others on my team, and they suggested that, you have to be hungry, you have to be thirsty, you have to get out there. And from that, I was like, I don't think this may be the best place for me to grow right now, but I want to look for something a little better. I want to look for something that aligns more with my skill set and allows me to grow. So I'll be working with an agency this summer in New York called Golan, where they have a program for HBCU students, and they're helping them, learn the communication industry. And I'm really grateful for that. If I did not do this internship, and I did not come in with, open heart, open mind, I probably would not have applied to go in and had that position, because I would have just been thinking, oh, I got it. But it was some things I had and did not have that allowed me to understand like where my coordinator was coming from, and like what she was saying, what she was, going through, or like how I could be a better intern. And I know it was very challenging and hard for me at some spaces, because I was kind of new to the industry and people talking fast and typing fast and like doing certain things. But I think the most rewarding experience was that I didn't do the best that I wanted to do, but I learned from that. I grew and I pivoted, and I was able to find the next direction. So it was like a door closed and then like 50 other doors opened after that. And sometimes that will be the case in your internship experience.
Awesome. And Jalen, putting back to you.
Absolutely. As a former student body president, I am used to being in spaces where decisions are being made, and I'm sitting around the table with the heads of the university, the board of visitors, and a number of other folks that are actually making the decisions, whether it's state level or here at the institution. And my previous internship over the summer, I was at Crowley, a logistics company, but specifically I was in their wind division for offshore wind, a new and emerging area here in the United States of clean and renewable energy. And so I was working on business and policy affairs. My direct supervisor, who has been my mentor for a while now, she prided herself on making sure I was in rooms, not just at work, but outside of work, where the decisions were happening, where people were coming together and networking. I was an intern at Quality Wind Services, but I was at the evening time, I was in Chamber of Commerce meetings with business leaders in the Hampton Roads area, where they're talking about how we can come together and make decisions. They had me at the table. So one of the most fulfilling things I would say is those opportunities to meet people outside of work and at work for more opportunities. The internship that I have now at the Hampton Roads Workforce Council is because of my last internship, because of me being positioned and placed in spaces so I can meet new people. And so that's how I'm where I am now.
Awesome. And just now, just putting a nice little bow on paid versus unpaid, and where, how it is a priority in the decision-making process. I'd like to just quickly, well, not quickly, but talk about how college credit factors in. So did you all earn college credit for your internship, or any internships that you've had? And how did this impact your decision? And what is your message to employers about completing internships for college credit? And you all are welcome to tackle this question. We'll start with you, Anaya.
Okay, so this might be a lot, but I'm gonna try to answer the question and keep it to a minimum. So first, I did earn college credit with my internship. I did not know coming in, but there was a class that I needed to take called professional internship. And I reached out to my coordinator, signed the paperwork, and I was saying, hey, can I please use this for this course? And it worked out. Secondly, this impacted my decision a lot because through that paperwork, I got a lot more feedback than I was asking for, written feedback that was very helpful. So there was like a 1 through 5, you have to rate the intern. 5 was the highest, 1 was the lowest. And on some types it was like organization, it was like a 3. And I was like, okay, but you said I was organized. So what's going on? And then we had healthy conversations about, okay, so what do you mean by this? How can I be more organized? What are you seeing in my work that I'm not doing well? So I was really grateful that I used it for college credit because I got a lot more feedback and it opened a lot of more conversations with my recruiters, coordinators, and managers about their expectations and what they're looking for in the intern. I may have not been the perfect representation of it, but I think I've grown and I took that feedback and it has helped me a lot more. And my message to employers, I just want to say that employers should always favor paid internships. We're college students, we're working, we want the experience, we want to work in the organization. I am pretty sure in any fiscal budget, there's money to pay some interns, but I do understand that over time, 8 to 10 weeks may be a lot to pay an intern. So sometimes you have shorter internships or you have longer ones that, help you grow it and really save and make your money. But I also want to say that unpaid internships are really the ones I believe that you kind of really get to see where your passion lies. I've met a lot of interns who are working in unpaid spaces. They do like sports and media works. They're doing a lot of photography and videography, working long hours for like different brands and franchises, but they love the work they do. And now they have like 6-figure jobs, but they've had to work for years and years and years to build that up. So it really depends on the intern if they want to take paid or unpaid. But I do think employers should really seek out more paid opportunities or have some great benefits in their programming to provide them with that stability and structure to want to come back, to want to continue working with them, to want to build better relationships and hopefully lead to a full-time job. So hope that covered everything.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you. Jalen and Nina, if you have anything to add.
I'll let Nina go.
Yeah, I'll add just a little bit. And the question was, what advice we would give to employers about paid or unpaid internships.
Yeah, what's your advice to employers regarding paid and unpaid internships? And then if you did an internship for credit, what's your message to them about that as well?
So here at NSU, and under the School of Business, and Jalen, I'm not sure if this goes for all majors as well, but in your senior year, I haven't had to do it yet, but you are required to either take a certain course or you could substitute it with an internship. But my advice for employers on paid or unpaid internships, it kind of goes back to the conversation Jalen and Anaya had earlier. If it's going to be unpaid, there needs to be a great amount of other incentives like possible relocation, lunch provided, transportation provided, something that won't hinder that intern from doing the job that you're asking of them, so that they don't have to worry about other things. And that's all that I could really think of. But I do encourage paid internships because incentives and provide encouragement and engagement for people.
Awesome. Awesome. And Jalen, if you can bring it home with paid.
Absolutely. They cover the ground great. But I would just add that to Anaya's point, somewhere in your fiscal budget, you can cover paying interns. And so at any point, we could seek out those college credits from any way, right? And so I encourage you to not just try to use college credit as an incentive for hiring an intern, but to look deep into your budget to find funding to pay your intern. I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Thank you.
All righty. Well, let's shift a little bit and let's talk about interviewing. So to our panelists, what did the interview process reveal regarding your level of preparation for your internship? And then what were your lessons learned from the interview process? And we'll start with Nina.
Yes, so like I talked about earlier, both of my current internships, which I consider super major, they were unconventional. I had an unconventional interview process, and I kind of spoke about it earlier with Home for USA. There was a ball, and there was music playing, but we were also supposed to be networking at the same time. So it was a lot going on. But I walked up to a table full of men. I would have walked up to women too, but there weren't any there. That's kind of like my comfort zone, my go-to. But I was like, regardless, I'm gonna walk up to everybody, try to introduce myself, and use this opportunity to network. And then I also brought my other ambassador. We're ambassadors for NSU at the time with me, because I always believe in the African proverb, if you want to go far, you go together. But anyways, I introduced myself to, at the time, who I did not know was the director of the development sector at Home for USA. And he said, I love your hunger. I'm going to give you my contact information. I want to continue to talk with you guys more. And so at the conclusion of the program, I got an email from a representative from Home for USA saying that they were so impressed with me and my counterpart that they wanted to offer us an internship paid. And I didn't have to go through the process that most students had to go to. Mind you, there are 14 other HBCUs a part of this program, over 300 students. So that was a really big deal. They don't really do that. So all I had to do was write a short reflection on why nonprofits are important to me. And then by the next week, we were mailed laptops and computers, and we were a part of the team. And now they've extended me to work part-time. So that was kind of like my internship journey, and something that I've learned so far is that communication is key. Something that I wouldn't say almost cost me my internship, but something that a hurdle that I had to get over in order to solidify my place on that team. Understanding that the people that you're working for or the company that you're working with, everyone there, they are people too, and they understand that you have things going on. Students, I think we sometimes get overwhelmed with our responsibilities here at school. It can definitely be a challenge balancing extracurriculars, being the president of the honors college, an athlete, and all those other things, and also having this internship. Even though it may be remote, I still had to communicate even more. So that's kind of my story and my interview process. And my other internship, like I said before, I was a user of their services. They helped me become an entrepreneur. That was their whole mission and goal for young women. And then after I graduated from the program, they reached out to me and said, we want you to come back and help us help the girls that were you. You were one of the girls in our program, and it would be so fulfilling if you would come and help us. And I would work for them for free, but they do pay me. So that's one of those other things that I mentioned before, the value. And it also increases that pipeline, like having a student catering to them, helping them. So if you don't have it in your current businesses, or if you are an employer, I encourage you to look at starting programs or even small ventures to increase your outreach and student recruitment and engagement, because that can help you also build that relationship with that student, and they're more likely to come work for you, not just for if you're giving them money, but also that value. We are more likely to work for someone who offers us value and we feel welcome than someone who's giving more money and we probably wouldn't even like it there. So that's my take, that's my spill. But yeah.
All right, thank you, thank you. Anaya.
So I'm over here taking notes because I'm noticing the Q&As. And I'm like, well, maybe I could tie in the question in the Q&A. So I'm going to try to do that. So my internship revealed that I was definitely a big fish in a small pond here at my university. There are a lot of cultural differences when you're in different spaces. So when I was telling people like HBCU, like typically people smiling and excited, they were like, oh, great. And then the conversation continued. But I learned a lot of great lessons that I want to point out during my internship experience. So one, sometimes I was focused so much on the internship that I didn't really talk about myself. And I know that's crazy because they ask questions like, Naya, what's your passion? What projects are you working on? I was like, I'm trying to get the job. Why do you care about, frankly, what am I working on? But now that I'm thinking about that, I think that really shows how you can have a well-balanced interview talking about, you know, your personal life, your academic life, and your professional life, really pointing that all in because they want a well-rounded individual who can do the work and go to the meetings and, you know, engage in conversation and really want to be in those spaces. I also think it's important to do your research. Understand the company's goals, their missions, what's going on, be aware of the news, what is the biggest issue in the company, what are they trying to change, like what will you bring to the table that helps your role and helps the company, helps the team, and be natural in the interview. I know this may be like controversial, but I think interviewing is kind of like a little date. Kind of like a professional date. Like you want to really sell yourself. You know your internship is going well, the interview is going well when you are answering all their questions before they asking. So the whole tell me about yourself, what do you like, how'd you get here, answer all that in the first 5 minutes. If not, you can tell from their body language, they do not want to hire you or you will not move forward in the process. That's not always true, but typically recruiters are always interviewing people, so they want to make it easy for them. Be natural, be yourself, show the best that you can. I've learned all that. And also sometimes you can be the best person on the team and still not get the job. You may not get that next email, you may not get that next offer. They might not vibe with you well, but it just is another direction for you to go somewhere else where they like you a little bit more. And just have a really strong game plan, because even if you're interviewing with one company, have an interview the next day or the next week, because you have to have options. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and pivot back to Katrina, and when she finishes the question, we'll begin with Jalen on the response. So, Katrina.
Options. I'm just letting that echo in the ether. Okay, so what would it take for you to go back to an employer is the question. So if your host employer wanted you to come back as an employee after you graduate, what would your internship experience need to be for you to accept the offer? And in the interest of time, I'm going to try to squeeze in a couple of questions to help, as you all give your answer, pepper in some specifics. So tell us what you would like to happen. Who do you like to meet, see, hear from your managers and colleagues to make that decision? So we'll start with that. And Jalen, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. I think we've really laid out what we would need in order to come back. We've been talking about the investment piece. We've been talking about looking and seeking internship opportunities. We've been talking about what we would like to see happen while we're at the company and at the organization. And to tie all of that back to this question, the investment piece, the resources, the opportunities, how it starts, right? The interview, right? How it starts and what happens throughout, it's really the investment engagement part, and what is the buy-in for me? How much did I gain from working at your organization or your company? I think that really makes or breaks whether I will decide to come back, and also being offered, making the intern feel comfortable while they're there to say, hey, like, the door is open. It's really up to you whether or not you want to stay here, or whether you want to expand here, or move elsewhere throughout the company, right? And so making sure that interns feel empowered in that sense while they're there. All of those things are very important, and I think we covered that ground throughout the panel today.
Awesome, awesome. Anybody want to add?
Yeah, I'll add. I'm in PR, and I'll say that everything is strategic. From the moment that you apply, they already know based off if you're junior or senior, your location, your major. They're also looking at your LinkedIn. They're also looking at your recommendation letters. They're getting a feel for you. So they already know from the beginning. But I will say, once you sign that letter, if you feel that it's a continuous conversation, you feel value, you feel like you're getting emails, you feel like they're putting you in these different spaces to help you grow and succeed, and showing you what this is what it looks like to work for our company, then there should be a continued conversation, and hopefully you have a position or offer letter after your internship. A lot of times things get lost in translation, but I do think, though, if they really, really like you and they're seeking you out, then you can have a conversation or ask, well, I thought we were good, like, what's going on here? Like, what is the issue for you hiring me? Let them. But I also think you have to advocate for what you want. So if you know there's a position open, you know that you may want to stay, I think midway or some way when you have these conversations, doing evaluations, speak to your supervisors, your coordinators, and say, hey, I want to stay here. I see myself working here for a while. I like this position. I like what you do, Greg. How do I get there? But I think sometimes, for me, in my experience, I think I would appreciate a little bit more transparency in those conversations. And I will say I was one of the very few minorities or underrepresented groups. So I definitely had to channel certain things differently, like being a little bit more clear in my tone, in my communication, in my emails, because I didn't want to come off aggressive when I didn't know about things or when things were not mentioned to me. But in the end, we wrapped it up and we had a really nice civil conversation between a lot of my leadership team about, how they could have changed things or how I could have done things differently. So it was very helpful. But I think transparency and all those great things are very needed when you are trying to move from one position to another.
Awesome. And Nina, anything? Or if you
I just echo what my fellow panelists said. A dream interview or a dream internship, as I'm imagining what you're asking, is basically everything that they've said. The incentive, the value, and the communication. I think that ties it all, right?
Absolutely. And really quickly, one line, what's a fair amount of time to make a decision?
Make a decision for you signing on to the internship, or for them letting you know, or
what's a fair amount of time for an offer?
An offer.
Make a decision. What's a fair amount of time?
Okay. So I'm gonna say this is very different because it depends on the season of which you are interviewing. I typically interview all within the holiday season, so it's very tough. Typically, I'll get an email September, October. The interview will start maybe November. Typically, you have like 3 different interviews. So there's like the first one, the preliminary one, second one, then like the third is the big one. But to get to the point, it has been difficult. I've waited 2 months one time for a job, and I already knew I wasn't going to get it. So I applied to something else, and I got something else before they emailed me, and they were like, we're sorry. I'm like, I know you are, because I went to something else. But basically, I think your timeline should look for about, I would say 7 to 10 business days, 2 weeks max. Keep things on the email, keep the chain rolling, ask those questions, see what's going on. And also just tell them like, hey, I do have other things going on. I'm trying to make my schedule for summer, be very transparent in that. And then maybe they can give you an extension if that offer comes late.
Okay, anyone else? So 2 weeks is fair enough for Anaya, 2 weeks for Jalen, and
2 weeks. I've waited 3 months one time. I'm saying 2 weeks.
okay. All right. Okay. All right. We've got some really great questions coming from our audience that we want to tackle in our last 10 minutes. And Harold, I think we can just two-step, right? And get at
Sure. Nothing
Deep
like a two-step.
question. So I'll two-step after you.
Okay, well, I think I saw one earlier I thought was interesting is when do you start looking for your internship? So we kind of danced around that a little bit, but what's your time frame? When do you start looking? Or so let me say that first, and then I have a follow-up question to that.
Yeah. So when do you start looking? That's a great question. Typically, HBCU students or most students across the world start college for fall, August, or September. So that's the fall, and you might want to get an internship for spring or summer. So I would say immediately once you get in the summer, before you come to college, you should have your application materials ready. So resume, cover letter, recommendations, work samples, and something they can look at like a visual aid or some type of work that you can show. Have those things prepared within the first 2 weeks of getting to school. I know you want to like party, have a good time, but really have those things prepared. Start looking on LinkedIn, start, flagging things, start looking at applications, because typically it opens up September. And then you have like maybe 30 to 40 days to apply, but try to get your application within the first 15 days because recruiters will actually start looking at your stuff as you are applying. And then from there, the interviews and things start, and then you can, get some feedback and things of that sort. But I think just being the early bird really gets it. And sometimes reaching out to saying, hey, I saw this position that you have open. I know that you closed it last time. I'm ready to apply. Here's my name. Here's my resume. So kind of being hungry too and sending out those communication channels are great as well.
Okay, anyone want to add to that?
I agree, as early as possible. And also we use a portal called Handshake. I think that's across other campuses as well. Handshake and LinkedIn, they're the best ways to apply and see the time, how long, and when an internship will be. And often summertime is the best time for students to get an internship.
So let me jump in real quick and ask a follow-up question to that. So many companies want to have early access and early identification and may make the internship offer a year before. So I have employers actually making offers for summer 2024 with a decision to do it. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that right there would no, I think that it's empower the intern. Honestly, I think that would make the intern feel and the student feel like, hey, like this company really wants me, right? Like it's nothing like having confirmation about something that is a year away, right? The employer really wants me to be there. They want to invest in me. And so I feel like that's very unlikely. I haven't heard that before, but like that is, I think that is probably the best way to go about things, whether it's for next fall, next spring, or next summer of 2024, giving that intern that confirmation that, hey, like we want you. And I think that's important.
Yeah, so I haven't taken that much of a gap. Like Mr. Bell, I haven't taken that much of a gap. So it was typically, I was doing internship in summer and I was looking for the next summer, not like the next summer. But I think with those things that takes some time, a lot of patience and prayer and just seeing where you are at that point of your life. Because say, for instance, you want to do something else, your interest might change. But I've seen those internship opportunities for careers in like STEM particularly because they need students. They're like, hey, we're going to produce a lot more product. We need a lot more product design interns. So they already have something set for that fiscal year, which is great. But I think that's something that you have to really be smart about and strategic about and stick to the plan. For me, even when I was preparing for something for this summer coming, last summer, I was like, okay, what does this look like? How much do I need to save? What do I need to start preparing for? What am I doing now? Which I'm going to have to stop soon because I need to start preparing for things. So I think it's a lot of preparation, a lot of patience, a lot of being strategic with your plan on your academic and personal life.
Right.
Awesome. Our chat is sizzling.
Blowing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to combine a couple of questions that seem like they had a theme to it, and I'm going to do my best to kind of read it as one, at two questions as one. So when interviewing for internships, Is it an important factor to see someone that looks like you in the interview process? And how did you know if that employer was going to be inclusive of you? How does your cultural identity shape your decision in what employers to work with? So I know that's very loaded, but what we're getting at is how the diversity of an organization factors into your decision to pursue that employer, and how does your lived experience being a student of color impact your decision?
I can tackle this. Um, as saying, as my internship experience or my interview experience, when I was in that room, I was specifically, and I didn't realize at the time how important it was to me, because I feel confident that I could go up to anybody, and I did. But my first initial response was, I would like to find a Black woman to walk up to first, because it's more comfortable. That's my comfort zone. I feel like there's a sense of understanding there. And even after I got my internship, I ran to my career services department head, who is a woman, Dr. Sarah Nett Williams. And I explained to her, I just realized I'm the only Black woman in my department now. And my boss, who I'm like, he's a Black man, but it's definitely different. I feel like I have to, even though they don't put that pressure on me, I put that pressure on myself. Like, I have to make sure that I am always on my P's and Q's and dotting every T, dotting every I, crossing every T, because I don't feel like I have that same sense of understanding because they're not me, or they don't have like the similar qualities that I have that I know another Black woman would understand. So it is important because there are things that you experience that other people like you experience, and then that your boss or your peers do not experience. And so it's hard for them to understand you. But that's why, again, communication is so important. Even if somebody isn't you or not living your life, explaining to them what you're going through and who you are, that can offer understanding, and they will be empathetic to you. So it is very important to see someone like you or someone similar to you in spaces, even if students may think like, oh, well, I could walk up to anybody, I'm confident. When you're in that space, you have no idea, like, I really am the only one, and I don't know how to tackle this. So offering a safe space is very important in organizations, I believe.
Yeah,
If I
oh, you sure?
go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just thinking of this. That was really great, Nina. To follow with that, I think there are just two simple ways to tell if a company's diverse. I'm gonna be honest. The first, look at the leadership team. If you go on the site and you look at the leadership team, you look at who's in diversity, equity, and inclusion, human resource, that tells you everything. Look at their pictures, look at their LinkedIn. That lets you know a lot about the company. I've seen companies where majority were, there were white males or white females, and then you have like 2 in HR, 1 in DEI, and then 1 in finance. And then maybe some other represented minorities, but not as much. Also look at their social media. Who are they highlighting as their interns? Who do they have for these holidays? Who are they highlighting for National Intern Week or Day? That tells you everything that you need to know. And if they're making their story so big and glamorous, that's a PR move, y'all. So just understand the dynamic of what they're posting. Look at those visual assets, because that can let you know a lot about that company right there, and how they like to hire their folks, what they want their people to look like. And diversity does not always look like mixed groups of people. It's different for every company and corporation.
Yeah, and just to wrap it up and bring it home, representation matters, right? And it's very important, as Nina and Anaya has said. I was waiting to answer this question when I saw it in the chat earlier. I have had the opportunity to be interviewed by a lot of people, internships, jobs, different things. And more times than not, it has not been a person of color. Right. And so, and I wasn't afraid to ask, what does diversity look like at this company? What does diversity look like at this organization? So employers, don't be surprised if these students and these interns ask those questions. What is diversity at the company? What does diversity mean to you? Because I'm telling my fellow students, my fellow Spartans, to ask those questions, because representation definitely matters. And so I think that is a very important point, and I'm glad that question was asked.
Nina, Jalen, Anaya, thank you all so much. This was everything we knew it would be, and we appreciate all of the insight you provided today. And we want to thank those of you in the audience for joining us. Please be reminded, if you are a member of the HBCU Affinity Group, that this month's general body meeting is canceled because there is no way our meeting was going to top today's conversation. So we want the month to begin and end with these young folks. We also want to remind you to register for the 3rd annual HBCU Summit on March the 3rd, where we will have an additional student panel, and we will unveil new research on HBCU early talent recruitment and engagement, which was developed after a year-long collaboration with the Center for the Study of HBCUs at Virginia Union University. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at the 3rd annual HBCU Summit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.